Okay, too many G.
Hey, welcome to the work session for the County Commissioners of Weber County. This is Monday, January 13th. Commissioner Gage Furrow with me, Commissioner Jim Harvey, and Commissioner Sharon Bolos. Our first item is discussion and or action on the approval of minutes for the Commissioner work session held on January 6th, 2025.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Our next item, discussion regarding performance management policy, Emily Wild, Ron Smith, Scott Park, Stephanie Ebert.
Okay, I have a hard copy. I sent you all an electronic copy as well, but we've made some changes to our performance management policy. So just wanted to review those with you today. We have sent it through legal and the policy review committee as well. And so the changes reflect their recommendations. So a lot of it is just kind of clarifying how the process works. And just changing a couple wording, like goals and results, expectations. That recommendation came from the library because they set like expectations with their performance review process. We made some changes to, and I have this if you want to see the like changes. There were quite a few.
Yeah.
Just change some wording, so like, instead of saying merit, we call it pay for performance increase. So some of those types of wordings, we changed, like, in 3B, we changed the date from March 1st through March 31st, so that gives all of the department heads and directors and division directors the first quarter to start sit down and kind of start their goals and expectations for the year. So we extended that by a month. And then again, changing some wording. So if you look on section 3 where it says quarterly check-ins, that's what we call it in Oracle. So just to match what we do in Oracle, instead of calling it quarterly performance reviews, calling it quarterly check-ins. And then made some changes based on some recommendations from the department directors. So if you look in section D, I guess at the end of 4, how they can write their performance improvement plans if an employee gets scored a 1 or a 2. So we added it can be included into their quarterly check-ins, their annual goals, or a standalone document. Prior to that, it was just like a standalone document. And then in section E is probably the biggest changes. So what happens when an employee changes during the appraisal period? So for example, what happens when they change to a different department? And we kind of clarified the steps. So we're asking that a supervisor create like a check-in or a summary evaluation of the employee's performance. And then that gets uploaded into Oracle, and then we give that to the new supervisor. And then the new supervisor creates their new performance plan. And then in section 2, when an employee transitions to like a new supervisor or is reassigned within the same department, it's a little bit different where we have allowed the supervisors to just collaborate instead of actually create like a summary or a check-in. And that feedback came from some of our managers that, if they're within the same department, then they feel like they can, collaborate together instead of actually creating a new document. And then in section F, we kind of changed how and defined, I shouldn't say changed, but defined a little bit better in how employees are handled with the pay for performance increase. So again, we changed it to be called a pay for performance increase instead of a merit increase. Added the fact that except for elected officials and department heads, like all employees should have a performance score. And then in 4 and 5, we kind of added some language to talk about what happens if you're promoted, transferred to a new job within the same department versus another department. So within the same department, they're still eligible at the end of the year. If you get promoted into a new job and it's, you know, a new department, then you would be eligible for the full 12 months, but after your probationary period. And then new hires and rehires are eligible at the end of their probationary period, not the end of the year. Are the changes. So a lot of changes. So any questions I can answer for you?
Questions,
Yes, Madam Chair.
sir?
There's been a lot of time, energy and effort put into this. Thank you. There's a lot of thought. This has been really good. I love the word in F1 on the 4th line down. Overall is a wonderful word. But my question doesn't necessarily go with that word. It was, it's, you know, we talked about this a little bit ago. Every employee thinks they do a 5. Every employee thinks, no matter even if they're subpar, they think, I do a 5. And no one, because is there a possibility of reconsidering this? So it starts with, maybe we go 4 to 9. And so I don't know. There's still 5 digits. There's still 5 digits there, but everybody will be a 9 then.
Yeah.
Or, but you know, that it's just like, good night. Some of the managers, or at least the ones in our culture, parks and recreation, and not so much the library, although the sentiment amongst the library employees is the same. All the library employees think they do a 5. But that's my only pushback to this whole thing is, if you're going to this much time and trouble, couldn't we just retool the?
So I've toyed back and forth with this. I did talk to some departments, directors kind of about this, and I got mixed reviews because some of them felt like, well, we've like trained our employees that a 3 is a good solid employee, and to now change that would be hard, and others want to change it. And so I've just had mixed feelings because I feel like the root of the problem is not necessarily that we have it a 1 to 5. It's just that the managers are not evaluating properly, because if we change it, you know, to decrease it, you're gonna have some managers and employees who are always gonna say that they're exceptional and overrate. You do have some employees who underrate themselves as well. So
Listen, I'm happy that I wanted to throw my 2 cents in there. Sorry to interrupt. I'm happy to support whatever it is, and I'll just reinforce those managers that are still having a problem with it to do that. But if this is where you think the recommendation is where we think we ought to be, I'm not gonna argue with it like I'd sit and argue with Crockett.
Well, you could always go 1 to 100, and then you got a lot of variability. It's not enough, the problem is not the numbering system. The problem is the managers that don't have the guts to sit down and tell somebody that's really a 1 or a 2, that, well, you're really a 3, and then everybody becomes a 3. And then, so the bottom line becomes, but I don't care if you go 1 to 100, go 1 to 1,000, it doesn't make any difference. But bottom line, think the best thing you did in here is take out the word merit and put in performance. Cause that's what it really is. And I've always been deaf on, anytime we call it a merit, that becomes expected.
Yep.
Versus performance. How did you do at your job? I mean, that's real management, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, the problem is not the numbers. Go 1 to 1,000,000, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, you could do the grading system,
Yeah.
you know, A, B, C, D, and F, and you know, everybody's gonna claim that
No, that's-
somebody's an A when they shouldn't be.
That's not the problem, that's not the issue. The issue's with the people that are actually making those numbers.
Yep.
Or letters, whatever you call it.
And we
Yep.
are trying to rectify that. We have a lot of trainings already set up
Yeah.
throughout the year to educate managers and employees on the rating
Yeah.
scale and what we expect.
I mean, we did send out emails to managers who had employees who had like warnings for performance over their, you know,
Right.
for some of their employees. Saying, well, they shouldn't be scored more than a 3. We had a list of employees who are getting 4 and 5s, and
Yeah.
yet they have written warnings. And you would actually, we got pushback from one particular department that was like, no, we're not doing that. Even though they got a written warning, they're still doing
Yeah.
excellent in another, and they should get a 4 or a 5.
That's your issue right there. You hit it on the
That
head.
is your issue right there.
Yeah,
Even after us telling them they shouldn't be more than a 3, like, as a written warning, like, how are you exceeding when you've said all year long that
Yeah.
they're
no,
not, so.
human nature.
It is human nature.
Is there gonna be a section besides just the goals where you can just evaluate their overall job performance? Because maybe what they're struggling with is that the written warning was tied to their job performance, but as far as just grading the goals itself, they were satisfactory on the goals. And maybe that's a way to get the scores to be more reflective of actually how the employees.
Reflect them on the goals.
So so the goals are all scored. There's a summary section in the pay for performance document where they can, you know, it's kind of a catch-all. Where if it's like not directly addressed, but maybe overall performance, they can put in their comments there. It's not scored. It's just where they can put in their comments to address just specific things. Usually what managers use that for is to justify why they gave the ratings up above.
I mean, it's really easy to just have, I mean, to be honest, like a goal that's just your overall job performance. And I mean, enlist, okay, this is just your job performance, and I'm gonna weight this as 50 or 60% as just evaluating your job duties, not, you know, your goals and
When the
So-
managers can set goals too, so we
Yep.
could just go ahead and do that anyway.
yep,
And that's what we did. I mean, in the
Yep.
code auditor, we have 2 goals. One is your job performance, one is your behavior expectation. And that's a big percentage. I think that's like 70% of everything. It's how good are you at your job and how good are you at handling people? Then the other goals, the stretch goals, those are like 30%. So you could still get a solid rating, even if you weren't able to accomplish any of your goals, if you're doing your job consistently and you're
That's a good.
appropriate to how you interact with people.
yeah, I had the same thing. So again, I can't remember the weighting, but theirs was their overall job performance. And then they had 1 or 2 goals that were in addition to that, you know, if they achieved, they were rated on. So I think job performance is there, or there is the potential to be there. If the managers will put them in there.
Well, sounds like you have some trainings planned and hopefully that will help the managers understand what the expectation is, so.
Yep,
With this, can I just mention this really quick? So we budget 2%. Last year, if you remember, we budgeted 2.5%. We told everybody 2 because we wanted to give managers some room. This year, we budgeted 2, and that's what we told everybody. The way that it works out with vacancies, with people who aren't eligible for the full amount, we actually have a little bit more than the 2%. So we have an extra 1/3 of 1%, so a 0.33%. So I'd like your permission just to give that out as well. So for example, the treasurer's office has had some turnover, so their people aren't eligible for the full amount, the full 2% because they're prorated. I'm not gonna what I'm requesting is not have to pull back from the treasurer that difference. Just let the treasurer have that. Yeah, there's a few departments that will get a little more money as a percentage than other departments. But it's not big enough to worry about, I don't think. And it gives those departments the ability to reward a little bit more for some of their employees that were doing exceptional.
I'm okay with that.
And I'll support you, Madam Chair.
Good with that.
After all, it is your portfolio.
Overall, it is. Yes.
Overall.
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you. And so then we'll go ahead and put this on for the commission approval.
Good work.
commission agenda.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
I plan
you.
to send out those emails today then with this, if you're okay with that.
Yep,
Okay.
sounds good. Thank you.
All right, We'll switch out the room. Our next agenda item is a discussion regarding updates to Weaver County gift card and travel policies with Scott Park is still in the room, Lauren Thomas, Jason Horn, Matt Lemons the first. Not that
Good
bad.
job.
Did you?
Correct.
Matt Lemons won.
Is Lauren out there?
I mean, it's not a capital I, it's almost.
Okay. All right, commissioners,
Is
so
that-
hold on
is
just a
Matt
second.
coming?
No. Gage, have you ever noticed that when girls greet other girls, they usually do it in a tone that's a little more high than, just.
I have noticed that.
I just was curious, I just found that interesting is all.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Trying to sound happy.
Yes.
Yeah,
We're glad you-
trying to brighten up the room a little
Same
bit.
thing.
That's all.
behavior expectations is a big part of her pay for performance, so she's got to keep her people happy.
Okay, Scott.
Okay, so two policies. One is a new policy on the use of gift cards. When I was young, my father always told me there's two things you can't escape, death and taxes. So this is the taxes part. So if we give a gift card to an employee because they're doing a good job, the IRS wants their share of the employer taxes. And so if you choose, like, for your 5-year anniversary to get $100 gift card or something like that, you're gonna see your next paycheck actually goes down because we have to withhold the employee portion of taxes and pay the employer portion of taxes on that. So there's a lot of accounting that goes into this. We have to make sure that we're doing it right. And so what we're basically saying is you can't give gift cards unless you're HR or unless you got permission from the clerk auditor's office, because what's happening is people are continuing to give gift cards, not paying the taxes, and then we're in violation. And so this is just clarifying, the only people that can give gift cards without talking to the clerk auditors, the health department as part of a grant, because they do have a grant that has gift cards that they give out to people in need. And then the second one is human resources, because they understand the rule and know that we need to add it to their paycheck as taxes. Everybody else needs to come to the clerk auditor's office first. And then we just have some basic steps where we're treating it as though it were a petty cash account. You have to have somebody who has a log of the gift cards, someone who's the custodian and someone who's the record keeper, and they can't be the same person. So it's a fairly standard policy. I best practiced it, plagiarized, so it's best practices is what we'll call them, from some other entities. It's very simple. Basically, it's just making sure that we have good controls over the gift cards and that we are reporting them appropriately to the IRS. So that's that first one.
If someone were to receive a gift, however,
Personal
A gift,
property, not
say.
exchangeable for cash, then as long as we jump
De
through
minimis.
a couple of other
De minimis.
hoops, yeah. Has to be de minimis, which is like $100 or less. I can't give you a car and have that be tax-free.
How many, there are a lot of cards being, I didn't even know this was an issue.
gift cards, we give gift cards for retirement, right?
Yeah, other,
Retirement.
Or your 5-year, 10-year, 20-year
Do we?
anniversary, you can choose
Yeah,
a gift card.
Anniversaries.
What if it's-
Yep.
You can
Okay.
choose a gift card, but can you choose a gift?
You can choose a gift. And if you choose a gift, we don't have to report it, but if you choose a gift card, you have to be taxed.
Hmm.
So anything that's cash, so if it's a gift card, if it's $10 to Maverick, it's taxable. If it's a free slushie at Maverick, it's not, because that's not cash, that's a property item. The IRS rules are just crazy on it. As to what is and isn't de minimis, so we're just trying to make sure that we're clear. It hasn't been too big of a problem, but we continue to have a couple of departments that just forget about it. So we want this as a policy where we can remind them and have it documented, so if somebody wants to look, they can see it.
Oh, brother.
There you go.
That your
That's your IRS at work.
Okay,
So unless you have any questions on this, we'll just put it on a consent item, for one of the following commission meetings.
questions?
Makes sense to me.
Okay, next one is the travel policy. So this came up because of two issues. One, UAC in Utah County. So we had, I think, probably 6 different departments call asking, well, can they stay overnight in a hotel? And I think half the departments said no and half the departments said yes. And so we had some very disparate treatment among the employees, like someone from HR was able to stay overnight, someone from the health department was not able to stay overnight. There was no guidance in the policy as to how far or how long you have to be gone before you're able to stay overnight. So we wanted to make the policy a little more clear, and yet still allow the departments to have some discretion, so Sean can actually make the ultimate decision. But now at least there's some guidance, so I don't get 6 or 7 different department heads calling me the week after asking, well, should we have allowed this employee to travel or not? So what we're proposing, and you can look through here, there's various updates. We sent this around we don't have a policy review committee, so I just sent it to the department heads, to the library, to sheriff's office, Culture Parks and Rec, and got their feedback on this. But the biggest changes are going to be on page 7 and page 8. Page 7 at the very top, basically says a travel approving official may authorize the use of a rental vehicle only when all other modes of transportation would be impractical. The reason this came around is we had an individual rent a car, drive 20 miles, pay $40 a night to park the car at the hotel, paid $300 for renting the car, and then drove 20 miles back to the airport. So for those 40 miles, we spent like more than $400. And it wasn't far away. You could have just taken a ride share or a taxi. And so we're just clarifying, you still can use a rental vehicle, but only when every other mode is impractical. That was as expensive as the conference itself.
For
Just to
20
pay-
miles?
Yeah, just to park that car in the hotel and leave it there.
Yeah.
The whole
yeah,
time.
Wow.
So it's just a clarifying, and I wish we wouldn't have to write a policy for that, but we do sometimes. And the next one is on page 8, which is really where I want to get your feedback. So we talked to the different departments, and the idea that we came up with was how long, not how many miles you are away from the county, but how long you're going to be away. So if I'm expected to be at Utah County at 7 a.m., which means I have to leave my house at 6 or 5:45, and I'm not going to get back until 8 p.m. because I have a late night meeting. If I'm in travel status from the time I leave till the time I get back for more than 12 hours, the departments have the option, they're not required to, but have the option to allow their employees to stay overnight. So does that make sense?
So if I have to come to work at 7 in the morning and I leave here after a commission meeting at 9:30, 10 at night, I can walk across the street and stay in the hotel?
If you're in travel status, and I think travel status,
Travel status means you're so far away from.
yeah.
Got it.
But what
That
we didn't
works
want
if
to
you're in
do,
travel status.
yeah.
Just put your phone in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember where we defined the travel status. Did we just find that?
It would be at the beginning,
Okay,
and I'm just looking, maybe you might need to add that into that
because
paragraph.
we had it used to be a certain number of miles, right?
Yes,
But here,
traveler is in transit between their departure point and arrival destination. Considered, travel status is generally considered to be door to door, meaning from the time they leave their home or workplace until they arrive at their event or hotel. This also applies when they leave the event or hotel and arrive at home or their work location. So that is good feedback. I don't think that we put that in that paragraph, that actual defined term,
Mhm.
so we can add that when they are
yeah,
in travel
so you'll
status.
add up to this, that when they're in travel status in paragraph E.
Yep.
So commissioners, we just wanted to know what your feedback was on this concept. I don't want to say it's 60 miles, because what if it's 61 miles, or what if it's 59 miles and I'm required to be there at 5 a.m. from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m. and then the next day it's 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. We just didn't want to have to get that specific into here's all the exactly when you can and when you can't, have an elaborate flow chart of how far. So we just basically wanted to say, if you're going to be traveling more than 12 hours a day, if you're going to be out of your house for more than 12 hours a day on travel status, then it's up to the department head to decide whether you can or can't.
We're still gonna have a discrepancy among departments, right? If the department,
Yeah, but if we have at least a guideline, we can point to the guideline, and that way the departments aren't,
they can answer for themselves.
yeah,
Is that department head and or elected official?
yes.
Thank you.
Can I provide a little context of how we got to here?
Please.
Because you were in the room when, remember the days of Lynn Taylor?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the last revision, and I was a part
Yeah.
of that, and we had the Brian Barron as the attorney. Now we have LT, who is
Oh,
just.
such an upgrade.
Yeah, it's such an upgrade, right? So it was written out, it was stated, there was a exact mileage, time frame, that sort of thing in that. We took that out because we wanted to leave it to the elected official, the person that was kind of running the show, that if they had the budget and it made sense to them, that they could give that go ahead to do that, right? Now we're back to this because some of them were wanting to say, hey, kind of like Scott explained. So I actually fought with Scott in the beginning when he brought this up, but now I agree with him.
Mostly.
Almost completely.
Close.
I was of the mindset of if you're trapped down in Happy Valley and you just are done with the conference and you want to stay the night and come back the next morning, that's okay. And he didn't like that too much. So, but that's kind of how we got there. Is it was written out and there were
Yeah.
guidelines and there were hours and miles and all that thing, all that sort of stuff assigned to that. And we tried to give a little bit of leniency and so here's where we are. So he's also asking too, like, what are your feelings too, right? Because you guys travel as well. And so what is the thought process when it comes to a local convention or training or whatever else versus flying to Denver versus flying to DC, whatever?
Well, I wouldn't wanna stay in the Utah Valley overnight, so that's, I may be a little prejudiced. I'll come home.
Well, to me, that's close enough for a regular commute unless there's an extenuating circumstance, like it's 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. after I finish my sponsored dinner, you know, with all my other clerk auditors, and I gotta be back tomorrow morning at 8.
Well, that was my question. So if you go down, let's say you have to be there at 9,
Mhm.
you get out at 6, but you gotta be back, which is probably more realistic, maybe have an hour extra at night. You gotta be back the next morning. That doesn't fall within your 12-hour category. So
Mhm.
does that exclude them? So now
Almost,
you travel both ways?
door to door it does.
I mean,
Yeah, if door to door it's less than 12 hours, then we
Yeah.
would say generally no. Drive home. It's more expensive to the county, but if you're gonna be
But-
more than 12 hours, then you would.
well, I guess that's my question. So do you count the next day? Or, because if you're just saying, hey,
Or that day.
that
day's
day,
activity.
that day, you're not gonna make your 12 hours, but now I gotta turn around the next day and go back to Utah County. God bless them. I think you gotta take that into consideration, not just that 12-hour block that day. Especially those type of meetings, might be, might be up at Heber, or maybe at the new Grand Hyatt.
Mhm.
So I just think you have to deal with that.
Well, that's why we're trying to give some guidance, but I'm happy to accept any feedback if we want to change it. So if you left your home at 7 to be down there by 9, and then you got done at 6 p.m.
Yeah,
And then it would take you at least an hour to get home, let's say an hour and a half or 2 hours with the traffic to get home. That would put you more than 12 hours, so you would be eligible to stay. But let's say
Okay.
you left at 9, got down there at 10:30 for a meeting and got done at 4. And you could be back to your home by 6, we'd say, well, that's 9 to 6, that's not long enough to justify staying, even if you had to do that 3 days in a row.
okay. So you're saying realistically, getting through Salt Lake at 6 o'clock at night, I mean, so there's two ways to measure it. Is it distance and time, or is it really what it takes you to get there? Because you can be bogged up in traffic in Salt Lake for an hour and a half. At times, and you can get through in sometimes in less than that.
So you're talking about if it wouldn't be approved, but then once you're down there, it exceeds 12 hours.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah, and we talk about then there, so we're basically saying we want to go with time and not mileage.
yeah,
Because I can get to Logan a lot faster than I can get to.
Yeah.
Like Provo, and their mileage.
Right.
Or even down Salt Lake. We do say here, if an employee cannot determine the total amount of time that will occur over the course of the travel, the department approval or denial of the lodging request will be the sole discretion of each department head.
okay,
So we're just trying to give a rule of thumb.
we're never gonna solve I think you gotta leave it to discretion, but
Yeah,
I think your concept is headed the right way.
yeah. So is 12 hours enough? Does it need to be 14 hours? Does it need to be 10 hours? 10 hours seems like too small to me. If you're going down to the Capitol and back for a full day for the legislature, that could be 10 hours.
Well, here's what I'm sitting here thinking, if I may,
Yes,
Madam
please.
Chair. But I'm trying to think of the legislature here.
Yeah.
Cause the state's got some code on this. And if you live in Uintah, then you don't get an overnight. But if you live out where Greg Buxton did in Roy, then the state would pay a per diem or an overnight stay. You probably were due an overnight stay. They'll put you up at Little America or something, didn't they?
So they base that on mileage. If your home was, I think it was 90 miles, I may be wrong. If you're 90 miles or farther from the Capitol, from your home base, then I was at,
I think it was a little closer than that, cause Buxton's the one that told me about it. He's down here.
Who's getting the?
Maybe 90 miles round trip.
could have been.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, cause he was like 91 round
Well, it
trip.
could have been, yeah, it could have been 90 round trip, but if you do that, you're eligible. I could have stayed there every night.
Yeah,
Now, I stayed there on usually like 3 nights during the session, because I wanted to come home,
right.
but that's me.
That's the employee, they give the employees some option on that. And that's kind of where I am is
Yeah.
sometimes the employee, I'd rather sleep in their own bed than they would in a hotel.
I mean, I personally would rather be home, even if it's an extra commute, right?
Mhm.
But that's me personally. And we could, if you'd like, put a mileage component back in here. We're just trying to figure out a way to simplify, but yet still give a guidance. So
I like the hours.
I do too. I like where you're at right now. I'd like to try it and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think the time makes more sense because like you say, going to Logan,
Right.
the same distance to some part south. I'd rather, go to Logan every time because I can be back here a
Mhm.
lot faster.
Yeah,
So,
Especially in a couple of years when you start taking your drone,
yeah, my Joby,
Joe,
I'll just call Delta.
Delta.
According to what you
Use
tell
your
me.
sky miles and you can fly from door to door.
Okay, so other than adding that term in there, travel. What was it?
Definition.
Travel
yeah,
status.
add in the
Yes,
travel
yep, I'll
status.
add that, yep, and I'm gonna double check and make sure that department head includes elected officials, otherwise I will add that in.
Yeah,
Okay,
elected officials and department heads.
Yep.
Mhm.
anything else?
Other than that, there were just
I like it.
wording clarifications,
Yeah.
no real substantive.
So all that work we went through with Bronco and Lynn Taylor a couple of years ago is now.
Yeah.
Just
Some-
making
some of
minor
it,
tweaks.
Not all of it.
Minor tweaks.
I'm gonna blame that on Bronco.
That's all his fault.
Any other comments from any of you?
Nope, so we'll revise this. If you're okay with it, we'll just send it to you as an email with change highlighted, and if you're okay with that, then we'll just put it on the consent item, or would you like to have another meeting?
I'm fine with it.
Consent item.
Okay.
Consent.
But I, you mind, Madam Chair, if I take
Yeah.
2 seconds and talk about what we did just this morning, talked
Okay.
about this morning, so you know for your travel policy. On the last 3 or 4 days, maybe if it's been a week now, Delta's just signed agreements with Joby Aviation and Uber. Because they realized that they're only getting the business from the Salt Lake International Airport to Dallas, or to LA, to Atlanta or New York, or to London, or to wherever that is. They're only getting the business from the airport to the airport. They want the business from door to door. So they've partnered with these other transportation companies where you're gonna, and it's gonna get there, you're gonna be able to get online and buy your transportation from your door to the door or the hotel or where you're headed. So they'll be able to capture a little more. Just saying. So that's something that you'll probably want to be thinking about coming up.
One more quick thing. So this is gonna go on the commission meeting, which would be next week or the following. If you're okay with it, this is a verbal yes. I'm actually gonna take this draft. Cause we've got people that have already started traveling in the new year. And we have to adjust per diem rates and different things like that. I'd like to include a copy of the revised travel policy stating this is the current travel policy. So you'll see that probably in a day or two. Are you okay with that?
I'm
Yes.
okay with that.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You get it in mind.
Thank you.
I'll swing by.
Do you
and
mind
sign it.
making that adjustment? And change Commissioner Bolos and the date on the bottom page.
Okay. Our
Thank
next
you.
item.
Hey, how's that
you guys-
sauerkraut?
Have you finished it off yet?
It's great on eggs.
That's my other least favorite thing, eggs.
Well, that's good now, because eggs are like $70 an egg now.
Gosh, why is that?
How much?
Well, it's way expensive. They're like $8 or $9 for a dozen eggs.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's 18.
Really?
$8 or $9 for an 18 pack.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and there's big signs on Winco that say due to this bird flu or whatever, all the chickens are dead, and so
All the chickens are dead.
prices are high until they get the production.
What's this world coming to?
Crazy.
Yes.
Does he?
Hmm.
Better make sure he doesn't get the flu.
Do you want me to grab that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Liam?
come on in.
We are ready.
Sent you a zillion emails, so I'm not sure if you noticed.
Yes.
Okay, our next item is the solid waste rates for Uintah Highlands in Western Weaver County.
Why
Sean
you pick on
Wilkinson,
that? Oh, Western. Okay.
Scott Park,
It is.
Bill Ross S.
Yeah.
Everybody has this little, we had Matt Clemens 1, now we have Bill Ross S.
I think that's Stacy's scheme. She's the one who built
He's
it.
the one who added it. Okay,
All right,
Sean.
thank you, commissioners. It has come that time when we get the annual increase from Republic for Western Weaver County and the Uintah Highlands. So built into the contract is a 3% increase every year. We've got those numbers and they all add up. What we wanted to talk to you about today is the fee that Weaver County charges. So right now, we have a $2 administration fee that we charge to each of these areas. But talking with Scott, we feel like for the Uintah Highlands and Western Weaver County, we want to reduce that fee a little bit. For the Ogden Valley, we're going to leave that one alone because that contract renews in 2026, and we'll let the city deal with their own contract and do what they want to do. But we wanted to talk to you about reducing that administrative fee just a little bit and just see what your thoughts are before we put that into the ordinance. So Scott,
What's your recommendation on that?
well, go ahead.
So you remember during the budgets, I keep showing you that we're collecting way more
Mhm.
revenue in the garbage fee than we're spending.
Right.
And so basically, that money is being used to subsidize the general tax, which is exactly what the state auditor said we cannot do. And so we want to get that fee down to match more the actual cost. So we're tracking the amount of time and energy that Sean and his staff is spending on this. We're using that admin fee to cover that, plus any bad debt. We don't have any bad debt because we put it on the property tax notice plus a $20 fee, and we collect it when they pay property taxes. So our bad debt is very, very low. The only time we have bad debt is when somebody stiffs us and then moves. We don't stick it to the new homeowner, right? So we have very minimal bad debt. So we had no idea what to set that fee at when we were first starting this. It's proved that it's a little higher than we need to be. And so what I would propose is whatever Republic's increase is, we offset our administrative fee by that amount until we get down to an equilibrium where that administrative fee is actually covering the cost.
So this year, the increase, it's minimal for the first can. If somebody has one garbage can, they will see a 5 cent increase.
Mm.
Pretty
Per
reasonable.
month, yes. That's in the Uintah Highlands, and out in western Weber County, it's 7 cents. So,
Well, the fuel surcharge is falling off.
yeah, it's less this year than it was
Okay.
previously,
Well,
yes.
people up there, the Highlands there, garbage doesn't stink.
Yeah. So, and it will depend on, some people have 2 or 3 cans, so they pay more money. That's
Mhm.
just the way it works. But it's a pretty minimal increase this year. We had talked about maybe going from $2 down to $1.50 and just seeing where that puts us and then making these minor adjustments as we move forward. So
That's what I was thinking.
that's the proposal today,
$1.50.
$1.50 instead of $2.
I like it.
Okay,
So
well,
the residents will actually see an overall decrease in their costs this
Right.
year.
No, we've talked about this over the past
Mhm.
Yeah.
couple of years.
Yeah, yeah.
You reduced it last year
Yeah,
and we're going to reduce it further this year.
yeah.
That's a tax decrease,
It is.
No, it's not
It's
a
a fee
tax.
decrease.
It's not a tax, it's a fee.
fee decrease, which is like that.
We don't want to get those words, no longer.
Yeah, don't
no longer.
confuse those.
No, don't.
Keep the amount, then it'll be a tax and it'll be illegal.
Right.
That's
Sounds
fantastic.
good.
Okay,
That's good. Answer me a question though, if I
Yep.
might, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So you talked about Ogden Valley staying the same.
Yes.
Which, that's great. What happens next year, 2026? Do those contracts automatically expire? I mean, how's that? I'm just getting
Yeah,
ahead of
it's great.
myself.
No, it's a good question.
But I know there'll be questions about it. We gotta.
Yep.
Make sure we communicate that on to our friends in the valley. That, hey, this is another thing you have to deal with.
Yes, so that contract runs through April of 2026
Perfect.
with Waste Management. So we
But-
thought
But that contract's with us.
that it is, but it will roll over to the Ogden Valley, so they have to honor that
Okay.
rate
All right.
until that contract expires.
Hold on. I'd like that to be put in writing. I know that it already is in writing, but I'd like that to be put in writing to the new whatever. We're just letting you know that this contract exists and Waste Management, we as Weber County do not plan on renewing our contract with you. However, the new city may want to.
Correct.
And but just to let them know. This
Yeah.
is another fine thing that they'll have to.
No, I think, and Chris, you know, in your whatever monthly meetings you have with that group up there, you might just make them aware of that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We thought that was prudent to let them make their own decision on an
For
extension,
sure.
Prudent.
so.
Will we still have garbage service to any residents up there?
I don't think we will, honestly.
Is there anybody at Powder Mountain?
No, we left Powder Mountain out of the contract, we left Causey out of the contract, so everybody up
And
South
Snow
Fork
Basin?
and Snow Basin is not part of the
Commercial.
contract, so.
Okay.
but the new city would actually have to pass an ordinance
Correct.
that brought everybody into that, or they'd have to go through that same process we did,
Yes,
because, you know, we had a lot of people that said, I just want to be on my own.
right.
Right.
And
Now, there
let them
are,
contract.
there are some renewal provisions in that contract, so I'm guessing if the city inherits it, they probably have those same rights.
We do have a county ordinance that was passed, I believe, after this contract was entered into that says no contract can go past 5 years without having to go through the bidding process.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Okay,
I mean, they would be bound by the same provisions under state code that says if, as long as you can piggyback off of any other governmental entity that's gone through a valid and fair procurement process, that should be okay.
okay. Well, they might have to go through an RFP then.
That's what I would think.
Yeah,
Okay.
Don't wanna do that before they need it.
yes.
Well, they may not like the service, they might want to anyways, who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
It's true.
that's up to them.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless you want us to enter in a one-year contract or something like that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Where it expires in April,
April of 26.
so.
Yep.
It's
The new city will have had enough time to at
Mhm.
least have it on their agenda and they can.
for
decide.
sure,
They've got time to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
for sure.
All
Anything
right,
else?
that's it for Republic.
Yeah,
Okay. Then item 5 is, motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.